Yes, we can, Russ. Yes, we can. What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler, episode number 104. As you notice, Bridget is not here today. She's out on assignment, and she went to Belgrade, and she's doing some fun stuff over there. I'd imagine when she gets back, we'll be talking a little bit about WordCamp Europe and all that stuff. But before then, I have this guy named Russ. Russell Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How's it going?
I feel like putting Bridget on assignment makes her like her pay grade went up on this show, and I love that she's expanding. Bridget, we love you. I miss you. Hi, I am not Bridget Willard. My name is Russell Aaron. I work at WebDev Studios and maintain where I keep people's websites up to date and make sure that your sites are not breaking. That's what I do all day, every day, and I'm committed to doing it.
Sweet, man. It's good to have you on as a co-host. Good to have you on. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog. And today's topic, we're going to be talking, it's WPblab episode number 104. And we're going to be doing planning, maintaining a flexible content calendar with Laura. Laura, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I'm Laura Coronado, and I work at WebDev Studios, which is a website design and development agency that specializes in WordPress. I am the communication specialist there. And aside from WebDev, we also have Maintain, as Russ mentioned, and I work with Russ. We also have Pluginize, which is plugin development, and we also have a small business division under eWebscapes. So I'm basically managing communications, including website content, blogging, editing, proofreading, and social media for 4 brands.
Dang, no, 4 brands. I recall you as a 5th brand that you also do as well. Your own personal brand. What do you got going on?
I dropped the ball there on that one. Okay, so
yeah, you should be wearing like a hat or a sweater or a scarf, or you should have some shoes behind you, or you got something going on here.
Laura actually has a hat and an outfit, so you know, like when you have to put the manager hat on, she has a whole ensemble. That's what Laura does.
Here's my manager hat. This is what I got going on here.
I should just get a handbag. Is really what I should have. I just should.
Right. You should.
So I do
Russ
have
needs a handbag too.
Blog at lollyshopping.com. It turns 11 years old in October.
Ow, ow.
Been on WordPress for a decade. And you can find me on Twitter at lollyshopping.
That's awesome. I love it when people have their own brand stuff too, and they kill it on that. They kill it on their client stuff or the company that they work for stuff. Awesome. What'd you have to say, Russ?
You just said that I need a handbag, and actually Laura tried to convince an employee of ours to buy a handbag to fix his wife's back, and I was buying one because Jill and I just had our 2-year anniversary, so she literally got us a handbag. Like, she sent us a link, we went through it, so, you know, she hooked it up. And
awesome. I am as an influencer when it comes to shopping and fashion, so yes, I influence people to go buy something.
Sweet.
I want to point out that, so Laura and I do live in the same city and we see each other sometimes, but we do work remotely for WDS. So everything that we're like about to share and everything, just assume that we're not meeting hardly ever. And even at our meetup last night, we were in different parts of the room doing different jobs. So, I mean, we truly see each other, but it's like 102% of remote work.
That's cool. But you guys at least say hi to each other, right?
Oh, we talk pretty much every day, I think.
But like in person, you walked over and said hi, hugs, handshake, whatever works, right?
I was kind of running late, so I just kind of walked by and said hi and sat down.
It's one of those things where like we do communicate through the day because, you know, Laura does help us get our brand out there. So like when we discover maybe like a break in the plugin or something noticeable, like, you know, I communicate that to Laura. Laura schedules that up and, you know, Hootsuites it or however she does her magicianry. But like, is that even a word? I feel like it is. But like, that's that communication that she's describing that. But not only that, we have like, what, 35 other employees at WDS. So she's managing all of us.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Awesome. So we were talking when we weren't talking, we were texting, we were messaging each other about the idea of like the kind of working out this topic and figuring out how do you guys plan out that calendar that you use to be able to kind of schedule this stuff out and be able to kind of even before you schedule, just figure out what is it you're going to do. And I was like, oh, what kind of WordPress plugin do you use? And what kind of like SaaS solution are you using? Or is there like this really great, $10,000 software that everybody should be buying? And here's an affiliate link for, like, what's that thing? And you're like, no, I just use what?
A spreadsheet.
She's a spreadsheet, which is awesome. Bridget's one of those people that uses a notebook. Like, she busts out a notebook and she just writes stuff down in there. And I think at some point she puts it into some type of electronic format. Oh, you got a notebook as well. Check you out.
I always have pen and paper. I mean, pen to paper. It feels really powerful. But yeah,
feels like there was a decision that was made, right? Like you're definitely making this decision and you're writing it down.
There's control when you have that pen to paper, for sure.
Well, not only that, but like when you're doing team calls and you're trying to coordinate content, like it's hard to type and listen. So like having that pen and paper, I think that helps me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to be fully transparent, Jason, since you brought up the spreadsheet and me being so old school with that, on my own blog, I don't have any kind of editorial calendar at all. There's I mean, my own personal blog, 11 years old, I don't have an editorial calendar. I do have obligations because I do collaborate with brands. We do come up sometimes with like a deadline. But for the most part, even on my own blog, and people talk about this all the time, like, why should I have an editorial calendar? How do I manage it? How do I maintain it? How do I stick to it? It's really going to depend on your brand and your goals and all of that. So for my own personal blog, don't need an editorial calendar. But we figured out at WebDev Studios that we did, especially because, again, we've got those 4 brands. And right now we're pushing heavy content on WebDev and on eWebscapes. So I really need that sort of control and that management. The reason we're doing a spreadsheet and why that just seems to be the easiest tool is, honestly, I'm the only one who's touching it. Even though we have other writers, even though we all communicate on a Slack channel, even though I have it pinned to the top of our content channel so anyone can click on it and look at it, they don't. It's just easier for them to come to me and go, okay, so when's my blog post due? What's the title?
We also have an internal website where Laura posts things like, hey guys, like we're formatting posts this way now, and like we still just have a spreadsheet.
It's just easier, especially because there's no buffer between myself and the engineers or the executives who are writing. So I don't really need any cool tools. However, they are out there. I did some research. I checked on 2 of them. Do you guys want to hear about those?
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
What am I downloading later tonight, basically? I feel like you're telling me like what we're doing.
So I found one free one. One free, one premium. And in the WordPress plugin repo, there is one called Editorial Calendar. And that one you can actually manage multiple authors. So I thought that was like really cool and essential. They have like a little 4-minute video demo on there. And if I were going to use a plugin and have it accessible from my WordPress desktop, this is the one I would go with. It just seems really easy to use. It's really, you're literally looking at the month calendar. You can drag and drop. I love that. Anytime I can drag and drop, I love that. You can leave posts in their draft form and then just pull them in. And you can schedule and even edit your schedule from this, from its own platform, from its own little desktop, from that little calendar, as opposed to going to your list of posts and doing it from there. So that was the one that I was just like really jazzed about. And if I were going to recommend to somebody who is just launching their editorial calendar, this is the plugin I would recommend using. But I did find a premium one with all the bells and whistles, and there's always those things with the bells and whistles. And that one's called CoSchedule. And
oh yeah,
that one ranges from $60 a month for like a small startup up to $1,200 a month for enterprise level.
We have clients that maintain who do this. Like one of our clients is MyFitnessPal, and they have a thing called Map My Run and Map My Blog, and like they have just feeds going like crazy, and CoSchedule is just what they use, and like that is just on point for what they're trying to do. Like everything has its variable of like, you know, where it's gonna like lack or whatever, but for the most part, a giant company like that is on WordPress and is using CoSchedule. I think it demonstrates that, you know, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned earlier Hootsuite, Russ, and you can actually use Hootsuite to do the social media, scheduling and actually drag around and drop within a calendar and those sorts of things too. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely a bunch of ways. It just depends on how your brain's kind of wired. Are you wired as something that just needs to be a big long list, or is it something where you actually need to see a calendar and see the dates and you kind of have that Outlook, Google Calendar-esque type thing in your head?
That's how I blog. So I have my website, russellenvy.com, and I am the least amount. Laura hates this because I don't have a filter, so like I'm not like curating content, and most of the time it's not grammarly correct.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that sentence is also not grammarly correct. Anyways, the point being is like I don't have a schedule, I don't have content. It's like whatever comes into my head, I have to get it out, or else like I think about it all day. So I started blogging for that reason. I don't have a schedule. Sometimes like when I walk my dog, you walk your dog, right? When you take Lincoln, you're by yourself minding your own business. You're just a fella walking on the street. Like I blog. I put my headphones in, I turn on my Android, and I blog, right? And I talk about whatever. But how many words do you think I just said right now? Probably like 1,000. I don't know. How fast do you think you could have just typed what I said while I said it? That's why I voice blog, and I think that that freeness of like no longer typing. I don't feel the burden of like, oh, I have to sit down and do it between this, because I do it while I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Laura, are you guys are you also doing the editing of the content as well? Like, what's the workflow of like Russ has been assigned to write a blog post this month or what have you, and then he writes it in WordPress, in Microsoft Word, in Microsoft Paint. What's he writing it in first, and then he goes and puts it into something else?
Can we do this? Can we do this in real time? Because I actually owe Laura an article currently. So can I just explain to you like where I am and how this works? No, go ahead, Laura.
Well, it varies. So, like Jason, you were just asking me earlier before we went on air, how long I've been with the company. I've only been with the company for 1.5 years. So there was already processes. People already have their workflows established. I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to rock the boat. And I'm a Libra, so I'm very accommodating with other people. I'm a
Libra.
So I want to do whatever's easiest for everybody else. I am so grateful that our engineers are taking the time to write content for our blogs. I work with some really, really smart people. And for them to interrupt their workday when they're focused on client websites to blog for me, whatever works for them, I will take it. They could write it pen to paper again, and I will take it. So we do have, I'd say half the company actually goes into WordPress and into the text editor and writes. I prefer that. That's just easiest for me as an editor. But the other 50%, they do like to turn it in on a Google document. I don't know why that works for them. It just does. And if anybody knows, if you've ever done that, when you're copying and pasting, you're going to have formatting issues. But I've been working with WordPress long enough that I can overcome that. I figure it's part of my job just to have to deal with that formatting. And very often I tend to focus on improving other people's formatting anyway. One tip I'd love to give to everyone right now is there is more than a paragraph. Bullet points work really well. There are other ways, multiple ways to present your information than just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. So even if somebody does go into the WordPress text editor and writes their blog post, chances are I'm going to go in there and improve the layout somehow.
Cool. I was just curious about that because I've seen it a bunch of different ways, and it just really depends on, especially if you have a specific format that you want to do this in. So, for instance, if you're writing for a blog where there's ads that are being injected between paragraphs or something like that, and you have so many paragraphs per that you want to make sure you're hitting, or that the paragraphs need to be more than 300 words or less than 300 words, or whatever the kind of the style guidelines are that the place is kind of set up. So just curious about that.
Can I tell you what I do?
Yeah.
So I use my headphones and I use Google Keep. So Google Keep is an app. It's like Evernote, but I use Google Keep. So when I save it on my phone, I can just go to keep.google.com, and there's all my stuff. So I actually just take it off of that, and then I drag it into webdevstudios.com/edit new post or wp-admin/new post, whatever that URL is. I go there. That's how big of a nerd I am. And that's the kind of content that Laura has to curate. She has to read stuff like that all day long. But so what I do is I try to do a rule of 4. Every 4 sentences, I'll skip a line. Every 4 sentences, I'll skip a line. I kind of break out my paragraphs that way. And I'm trying to solve one thing is when I'm writing this article, what is the problem and what is the solution, right? That's what it should be. You can include your theories and whatever, but it's just, this is what's happening. Here's what we're trying to do. And here's the plugin to bridge that gap. And that's really what we're writing. But, you have to, again, like Laura said, like we're working on complex code all day for large websites. And then, to scale it down to write a blog post and then to use a code snippet and make sure that your PHP not only works, but it looks right. Like it's a lot of stuff just to go into that. So like she said, she's cool with whatever we need to do to get it to her, just try to be mindful is all she asks. And Laura really doesn't ask very much of us. Sometimes she'll be like, hey, please go fix this. But I trust that she's done her work and she needs me to really go do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've all had bad clients, and you don't want to make your employees or the people that you work with be a bad client or act like a bad client, and not spend the extra time to, if they didn't spend the extra time to kind of figure out what the formats are going to be like, or anything like that, or they just put like the actual URL to the thing instead of including what the text is going to be before it's hyperlinked, any of that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, let the person that knows what they're doing do it if that's not your gift. So totally get it. So scheduling wise, so Russ has already wrote his post. However, he got it. He gives it over to you either via a Google Doc or it's sitting in WordPress ready to go as a draft. Then what are you doing? Are you figuring out what because that's going against your schedule, right? So you've already scheduled him to write this post. So in that Google Doc or in that Google Sheet, what are you doing with that? What's the next kind of step there?
Well, so with the editorial calendar, we have the due date and the publication date. So those are 2 different dates. The due date for me is 24 hours in advance of it publishing. So at WebDev Studios, we tend to push blog posts live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if your blog post is going live on Tuesday, I need it Monday morning. And I basically need that day to work on it because I'm doing a bunch of other stuff too, and I tend to multitask. So I basically need the day to proof, to edit, and so forth. And especially, again, if it's coming from a Google Doc, I know I'm going to have formatting issues. That's going to take even more time.
Yeah.
So they're aware of their due date and their publishing date. It's great if I can get it a week or 2 in advance. That happens sometimes. But I would say for the most part, I get the blog post on the exact due date.
And hopefully it wasn't written 15 minutes beforehand, right?
No.
Except for Russ. We can make fun of Russ because he's on the show here. He can defend himself.
So I'm pretty sure that, like, at jobs where it says like 0 days or how many days accident free, I'm pretty sure the other day we had to restart at 0 because I missed the blog date. So I'm that guy. So yeah. I did write something when I took Mitchell on a walk. I did have a lot of content written and I had something, but I did drop the ball. But what it is trying to manage writing and doing work. It's hard, right? And they don't want us to do that after hours. So trying to fit that in, that's really hard, especially with support. With support, you don't know what's going to come in the door. So it's hard to say, hey, don't bother me for, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I'm well aware of your job, man. That's you don't get to pick your battles. They all get thrown at you.
Yeah, we do a good job at trying to schedule that too, but we have to be that available,
Yeah. So let's say that somebody does miss their calendar due date. What do you have a couple sitting there ready to go that you can kind of slide them in? Do you just skip altogether and say, next week we'll come back around, or what's your tactic there?
So different ways that you can handle when someone misses their deadline. One is, like I said, sometimes there's always that person who way in advance beats their deadline. So if you've already got something there, you can work on that and get that published. I'm a big proponent of filler content. And you always want to have some sort of strategy handy for those times. This did happen just recently with Russ. Like, he just missed his deadline. Well, at that same day that he said, hey, I'm not going to make it, John Hawkins, who had a talk over at WordCamp Orange County, his talk went live on WordPress.tv. So I'm like, well, why not just write a cute little intro and embed his video? And that was actually what we ended up doing. That was our filler content for that day.
Hey, Laura, the other guy in that window pane, he's the reason why that blog made it up so fast. So literally,
no, not me, somebody else. But I tried.
You usually do it.
Yeah, not this go around.
Jason usually makes that video happen, but yeah, that was one instance where it bailed us out, right? But like, hopefully we get lucky with stuff like that. We do have pretty popular people in the space that do nifty things and get mentioned, so we can try to fill that.
Yeah, yes, cool. I definitely recommend just having some sort of strategy for those moments. Ours is, let's go to WordPress.tv and let's get a talk from somebody who works with the company, embed it, do a cute little intro, and there we go. We've got a blog post going live.
Or be late on a Friday and make it up with a YouTube video of WPwatercooler.
That has happened too. I have seen those show up. Yep, my Google alert goes off, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. No, and what's good about video, just in general, I mean, if you're not aware, is video takes time to watch, and time to watch also includes time being on the site, and time on site is a good thing. So yeah, I mean, keeping people engaged, and also writing good content around the stuff. Like, for instance, Cheryl and Sherry are sitting here in the Google Doc, just feverishly typing away all the little things that we're talking about, which is, I love mentioning them in the middle of the show because they have to type their own names into the Google Doc, which is really cool. But the whole idea is that, you get that extra little bit of content around it, because if you go over to WordPress TV, no one has written any content about that. You're lucky you got the title and maybe a little description that was the description from the WordCamp, but that's about it. So yeah, it's good to write some stuff around it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good filler in those spaces and those times when you need a blog post to go up quickly.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what do you do after that? With, you got to obviously at some point here, like, set up a schedule to actually post this stuff, and then do all of the social media sharing type things with it. How are you approaching that? So
yeah, first thing first, what I would recommend for anyone is that you need to know, one, how often are you going to be blogging? How often should you be blogging? For us, like I said, twice a week is working for us. That was established prior to my even coming on board. And, they were open to it being changed. We kept it that way for a few months. And I was like, it's working. Like, why change something for the sake of changing it? Keep it. So find out like how often you need to be blogging. 2, establish the best days and times to be blogging. For us, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. my time. So that's something that you want to establish. So when you're setting your editorial calendar, then you know your dates, you know your publishing dates, you know how often. And then again, you have those due dates. Again, for me, it works 24 hours in advance. For somebody else, you may want it 48 hours in advance. You got to, again, figure out what works for you. And then we went directly to our clients and asked them, what do you want us to blog about? What are topics that you want to know? And I really recommend just going straight to your clients, going straight to your audience. If you're not a web development agency like we are, but maybe you're a blogger, go on Twitter, go on Facebook, like, do a poll, ask them, what do you want to know about? Once you get these topics, then you can just start coming up with, I would do a little bit of keyword research and some SEO and see, about these topics, like how should you formulate the title, the slug, what is the right keyword for the topic? And from there, you can, once you know how often you should be blogging, the days you should be blogging on, and now you've got your topics, and you can just really go forward with an editorial calendar. I only plan in advance of about like 2 months out.
Okay.
So like right now we don't have anything up for August or September or October. And that's the thing about keeping it flexible, because there's always going to be timely topics that you want to touch on. So you have to keep things flexible.
Hey, Laura, can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
This isn't a bit, by the way. I didn't prepare this question. So when we found out about version 4.9.6 with WordPress, right? And we found out that it was not a pseudo security release that had new features, right? We weren't planning on that, but like, did you know ahead of time and have that schedule, or was that more of a last minute kind of thing? Like, how do we at WDS? I'm curious about this myself. How do we handle like? Matt Mullenweg just said this, and you know, not that we break news or anything, but it's like, hey, JavaScript is going to go in this way, or React is going to go this way, but we already have 2 months of content. We were banking on this. Like, how do we adjust for that?
So
I'm curious.
So the content that we have scheduled out is like what I would like to call evergreen content. That way it can be pushed a week away. So if I'm just going to do a blog post on like 5 tips for imagery on your website, that's something that can wait a week. That's not something that's just so timely, like it has to go up right now. So then this happened just recently with Ben, who's one of our engineers over at WebDev. He came to me and he's like, hey, there's some more stuff going on with GDPR. People aren't talking about it. This is very timely. I'm going to write a blog post, and I recommend you get this up in the next couple days. So I already had a blog post ready and scheduled to go. But again, it was one of those evergreen topics that it could wait. And again, that's us being flexible. Like Ben saw that opportunity for us to jump on some more GDPR topics. He had a great blog post. He had some great content, great information. And again, just having that flexible calendar, I fit his in and just pushed the other blog post aside just for a couple more days.
That's cool.
I'm sitting here and as you're telling me like what you're doing, like you had to push something, I'm imagining that you're going into WP admin, going to all posts and changing the scheduled date. Like I see WordPress like that. So like I sympathize with like what you have to do, and I feel like people do try to give you ahead of time. But like, do you have that in your head with WordPress? Like, you know, if you have to push it, do you know the 5 steps in order to change the date and then to go move? Like, do you have that process written down? Like, do you have like a disaster plan? Do you know what I'm asking you?
I don't have a disaster plan.
Okay.
And a lot of stuff does live in my head. And I do worry if I ever get hit by a bus, what would happen? The blogs at WebDev Studios, like I'm worried about this. I'm also the one who tends to be the librarian, and I also just know all our past content.
Yeah.
So I kind of do worry about some of the stuff that I have in my head. It's a really good point, Russ. This is something that probably should be written down. There should be some sort, you know, we also don't have a style guide. And I've been wanting to do that. Like I've been wanting to write down like, okay, if you're writing a plural noun, you don't need an apostrophe, like, you know, just some little guidelines. Case, why camel case is important. So that's something that I think companies should consider doing, is having some sort of style guide and say, this is how we spell this. This is how we do that. But additionally, like you're saying, Russ, like just some sort of like a disaster plan, or just some sort of any kind of plan about, hey, stuff is scheduled, you need to log in and update it and change it if you're going to push it back. Well, otherwise, you've got 2 blog posts going live at the same time.
Well, so the example I was getting at is we use advanced custom fields on every website, on WDS, on eWebscapes, maintained and pluginized, but because they each have their own different flow, they each have a different way of scheduling posts or moving content around. So that's what I was getting at. Like now that we made the decision, hey, we're going to post, you physically have to at least log into WordPress and change that due date. Like, do you have that steps down? Like what does your day look like when you have to do that? Like, you're clicking around, you're moving mouses, we're checking emails. Like, you really do have to keep on top of it, right?
Yeah, I'm always logged into WebDev. That is forever open. My dashboard's always open. Those blog posts are always right there. We were talking about Hootsuite earlier, so we actually use Buffer for social media.
Yeah,
so
me too. Love Buffer.
Yeah, I love Buffer too. That really works for us. And that remains open all day long too. So I'm constantly monitoring, because sometimes, even though you've got it scheduled, sometimes it doesn't go out. And it's not just Buffer, it happens on WordPress. Sometimes stuff just doesn't go out. And so you have to keep it open and stay on top of it. So yeah, Russ, I mean, just daily, I am daily logged in, I'm daily monitoring and just checking to make sure that things really are going live.
So one of the things you mentioned earlier regarding the plugin editorial calendar, what's and I actually use this on my own site, is that it actually shows you visually where those posts are within the calendar, like actually looking at a calendar. So think of like the list of posts in WordPress where you just have like this long list of posts in chronological order, or reverse chronological order. You're actually end up seeing them as a calendar themselves, and you can grab the link and actually drag it around if you want and move it across the screen. So if you go, Tuesday's not a great day for me, I want to move this to Wednesday, you can just move it over to Wednesday. And those are the actual posts that you've already scheduled to have posted. Like you can move those pieces around. So if you're a visual person, like for me, and like what Russ was saying, like, you could just change the date. Well, the 21st means nothing to me if I don't know what day of the week it is in relation to the other dates that are happening around it. And so I would suggest, even for just a minute, install this plugin and look at it and go like, whoa, look how many posts I wrote, and here's all the dates I typically post them. And then figure out, are those actually the days you should be writing those posts or not, and how you should kind of go through and schedule
That's
those
a plugin, Jason, that we're going to write for Orange County Plugin Palooza next year. When you open the editor of a post and you go to change a date, we're going to have a jQuery date picker, and it's going to be so nice.
That would be awesome. Very nice.
Like you said, like remember the old days of WordPress when like you had to do it by the minute, like you had to change the post from 903 to 902 to get it to change in the blog feed. Like that's what I'm saying about like we've come so far, but like Laura's day, regardless of whatever, just if you use WordPress for a minute and you change the post, like just embrace that for a minute. She's keeping control of this chaos. And like she keeps in, we use ACF, we use this other plugin, and we have to clear cache when we go. Like there's a lot of steps. I wish it wasn't as hard as that anymore, but in order to rank and search and to load and to GDPR and to another acronym coming later in the road, insert here, like we do have to keep on top of that. And like that's what I do at Maintain, is like I keep WDS up, and we try to keep plugins up to date and core up to date to help Laura, because if I go down, she goes down, and then her whole content's down.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you said that, Russ, about caching and about all those pieces. So even though you have a post and you have it all posted and published and ready to go, and you're about ready to go send a whole bunch of people to it by putting it into Buffer and posting it right now, scheduling up another one to post 6 hours from now or 3 hours from now or whatever, just to kind of keep things going. You still have to worry about social media links. Did Facebook actually pick it up correctly and scrape it right? Did you change the featured image before you posted it, and then you changed it again, but you forgot to clear cache, and then you forgot to tell Facebook, hey, Facebook developers tools, I want you to make sure you rescrape this page. And you have a lot of stuff that you have to worry about. And this is why Bridget always says, don't do a bunch of automation. Don't automate the entire process. If you automate the entire process, things will break. I think you should automate as much as you can, but the things that you can control, especially when it comes to like the Facebook's rescraping of the post and those sorts of things. I mean, if you have one chance for somebody to see this stuff on Facebook, for instance, you want to make sure that it looks good, and it's not going to be some block that is some. Can I
tell you my favorite?
Bloggers. Yeah.
When somebody shares from Twitter to Facebook, and Facebook shows you two t.co/ like two bit.ly links, and one links to the Twitter post and one links to the blog post, and it's a 50-50 gamble. That blog post looks horrible, and you're sharing that across your whole entire platform. I would recommend, because I just started doing this recently, use a plugin that will let you share or buy the updated feature or whatever to say, I want to share directly. Don't try to daisy chain them, or else your content is going to look horrible, and that's going to be on the internet forever. You're that guy that has two links of the same thing, and people don't like that.
that usually happens to people that use Edgar. I don't know what it is with the Edgar app that it's like some SaaS solution that do social media sharing. Whatever reason, I always see people post stuff using that, and then it ends up showing some weird text, and then it has maybe the URL, but it doesn't actually have any of the OG information from Facebook. You know, it's just it's really, I don't know what's up with that, but
so
maybe
Laura's
scraping correctly or whatever it is they're doing.
Laura's wearing a hat, so all of our links, when you go to WebDev, like instead of bit.ly or whatever, all of our links are wds.af/
Nice.
And then it's a random. So that was actually when we got together, our company did a whole retreat, and we got everybody together, and we embraced this, and like, this is our brand now. So now Laura, she's working with other people in the company, and we're building a brand new brand. So not only is she maintaining what we built, but we're venturing out into this new thing. We don't know what's going to happen with .af. Like that trend could not become a thing anymore. We're going to go back to sharing bit.ly links or something. Like we really are not only, trying to solve this, but we're also embracing these changes. That way, when clients come to us, we know how to do all this as well. And we already have that process written down. So if you want to maybe help your business, I think blogging and having a content process just shows you to everything you do should have a process, right?
Yeah. For sure. And I like your idea of writing things down, because like I said, if I get hit by a bus, you people are screwed.
And you won't be worrying about it anyhow, because, hey.
What I want to say about the wds.af, actually, our links, the short links that we're using are not random at all. We're using an extension called Rebrand Lee. And that actually allows us to set like the slug of it, right? So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So we can, I can be very purposeful and mindful. So I will condense like our blog post URLs, like when sharing on Twitter, and I use Rebrandly. So it might be like wds.af /GDPR, because that might be the blog post that I'm linking to.
Right. Smart.
So Rebrandly is a really great tool that we're using to help us strategically come up with what our short links are going to look like.
That's cool.
So Jason, we have a plugin. It's called InstaGo, and InstaGo it sets up a redirect on your WordPress site. So anytime somebody goes to the InstaGo page that you set, so it can be any URL. So like mine is russellaaron.go. If you go to that, whatever blog post I want people to read to or go to, I can send them that way. So on our on our Instagram, we have a link, because you know how you just have the one link inside the bio. It's just WebDevStudio/go or whatever it is on Instagram. Please go click it right now, by the way. But whatever that is. And so what's cool is when Laura schedules a new post, she hits that button, and then no matter what, all of our, I use this on my social media for everything. It's just designed for Instagram, but that go link for me is on my Twitter, because I want the same people on Twitter to see the same post and whatever. So we built a redirect plugin to do this.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
So instead of people use Linktree and stuff like that, but we internally recognize the problem. We built a tool, and it's something that I think Laura brought that to our attention, and I still to this day think that we built that plugin just for Laura.
and then you turned around and put it on Pluginize, right? And now you guys are selling it for $14. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. How about that?
But so that's related, right? So what do you do? Like we just spent 40 minutes talking about our entire process. What's the payoff? Like, Laura, can you please talk about like what the payoff is for WDS? Like, are we like James Corden and we only care about the number of viewers on YouTube, or do we only care about hits, or like, maybe don't give away the secret blend of herbs and spices, but what is the payoff for WDS? Like what is this hard work for?
So in the end, the editorial calendar and the content strategy is to support our marketing strategy. And we have a director of marketing, and that's Shada Tarabi, which I'm sure you know Shada. And her marketing strategy is to support our business goals. So it's kind of like three-tiered, right? So you've got your business goals, right? Then you've got a marketing strategy to support it. And the marketing strategy is going to be all-encompassing. It's not just content. It's also going to be advertising, should we start buying television ads? Should we start buying print ads? Like, we've got all of that.
We're going to sponsor NASCAR. That's what's going to happen.
As well as sponsorship, right? So now there's sponsorship to think about. So she's got like this grand marketing strategy scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Then my content strategy is to support her marketing strategy, and it's just a portion of it. So in the end, what I'm doing is to help support a marketing strategy that is designed to support business goals.
That's cool. And I love hearing that marketing and content. I mean, you guys all work together, obviously, but that it's not the same person
remotely.
That's having to do both of them. Yeah, but they're not having to do. It's not the same person that's having to write a whole bunch of content, herd all the cats and do all that stuff, and then go, oh, by the way, let me tell you all about all the things that we did. We'll just let her kind of, let that other kind of counter, that whole piece to just kind of run its own thing, so you don't have to manage those things as well. So, we have about about 20 minutes or so left here.
Are we gonna start taking random questions from the audience? Because I want to answer the second question twice.
Well, what I wanted to kind of figure out is what's the we talked about the objective of making sure that these things get posted in a timely manner and that you're able to collect the information that you need. But what are the things that you do after the fact here? Are you going through and finding old content and repurposing it and bringing it back new? Are you going through and doing what Google likes you to do and go and update old content? What's your strategy is on any of that?
So it's funny that you bring that up, because that's something we just started talking about this week.
Because I watch you guys' Slack. Duh. No.
Well, it's also because we have clients who have Yoast version 2.01 and we update to 7.6.1 and we have to use smart people like Laura to say, hey, did you know that like all these things in Yoast changed? Because she's there all day. Like that's a real thing, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what do you do? What do you do with that? Do you go through and repurpose stuff?
There's two things to think about. So we have found that our old blog posts were very technically oriented. But we've also found that while that's a great audience and it's great traffic, they're not the decision makers. They could at some point become decision makers, but really who we want to speak to is the marketing director, is the vice president of marketing. So you have to wonder, is there going to be a payoff in taking popular content that was written in 2009, 2011, 2015, but is very technical? Is there going to be a payoff in updating it? So right now we're having this discussion because we are kind of wondering, is there a payoff? So we did find 3 pieces of content that were technical that, according to Google Analytics, we're still getting a lot of traffic from. They were written in 2009, 2011, 2015. We're having our engineers look at them and 1, see if they're still accurate. 2, see if they're still relevant.
Are we talking about like the code? Is the code compatible with what is written? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so accurate. So if there's code in there, then is it accurate code?
Wow.
If there's a solution presented, is that solution still accurate? But then
I've been saying this for years. Every blog post that was written, it should have the date. It says I wrote this on April 3rd, 2019. That way hey, it's 2020. This is bad advice. Or
all of our blog posts have dates on them.
Yeah.
All of our blog posts do have dates on them. So people should come to that knowing.
I want to call to action. Hey, this was written for I wanted to say version 3.8 this was written for. That way I know because SEO is the thing. I could write bad advice, but I could juice the out of it, you know what I mean? Fill in your own blank in that pause. But I'm Eminem all of a sudden. But I'm just saying, is that what we're considering, or is that what we're experimenting with? Is what's that payoff?
That's the discussion, because I'm of the belief that it's not enough of a payoff.
Wow.
Everybody else is of the belief that it could be a payoff. So right now we're not ready to say definitely don't do it. Right now we're only at the point where we've identified 3 blog posts that have an opportunity to be looked at. We're going to have somebody look at it, and then we're going to discuss further and say, is this really worth the time? And that's the thing you have to think about. Is it worth the investment? Is it worth the time? If it's no longer accurate, no longer relevant, maybe it's maybe you just get rid of it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not always such a bad idea. If it were me, like if it was 100% my decision, I'd cut it. I would just be cut it and be done with it.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had
That's not the answer I thought you were gonna say. That's not the answer I thought you were gonna say. I'm genuinely shocked.
Yeah, we had Saeed Balki on a while back where he was talking about how he does things with WP Beginner. And one of the things that he was talking about is he actually has his staff go through and look at all the old posts that are actually still getting traction and update all the content in it and rewrite a lot of it and really rework it, because if it already exists, it already exists. You might as well just, update it. But I've also seen it where you can get an additional page view out of it, if page views are your thing, to say at the beginning of it, hey, just let you know, this stuff, we're leaving this here for archival purposes. But by the way, if you click on this link, we'll take you to the newest version of this, where we actually talk about how instead of writing this stuff a certain way, hey, check this out, we used objects in this instead of writing a bunch of functions or what have you. And so you can kind of look at it that way. Mm-hmm.
So I used to work at this mortgage company, and I used to write blog posts, and my blog posts were about like offering solutions for loans. So when you talk about loans, you're talking about like how much money over a term, and you start doing math, right? But so in that industry, you're not allowed to have rates that are not correct. And like, so, I would argue that it's important if it lives on the internet, you have to go and make sure, because if not, you as a company might get stuck having to offer that rate at a loan, and your company might take a financial hit. So like, I wrote a plugin for that company, and what we did is I used a short code, and that short code used to scrape our mortgage rate. And so the blog post used to do the math for me, and I never had to worry about that again. So like,
that's smart.
But like, that is, our industry doesn't have that. We don't have guidelines in WordPress like that. If it's bad code, it's bad code. We're not going to get penalized. But there are industries, and I'm glad we're having that conversation, are you going to get punished for having this? Because maybe you should axe it then. Maybe you're right. I'm on Team Laura now all of a sudden. Maybe you should just axe it. Save your company.
Laura.
Yeah, man. It's interesting to talk about, because I feel that we have conversations at WebDev all the time where we're just trying to talk about like what we think the future is going to be. And then, hey, all of a sudden, because the community sends out 3 tweets over Memorial Day weekend and GDPR comes a thing. By the way, it took skateboarding like 30 years to become popular, and it took like Memorial Day weekend for GDPR to become just as popular. So skateboarding's probably pretty pissed. I'm just saying. But like, I'm just saying that like we did at our camp, like go there, and we had a big mastermind of like, what do we want to do, whatever. But it's like when that shifts, it's like, here's the game plan. Here's what we're doing, right?
So if you were to delete the post, let's say, deleting that post, you're now going to have, dead links that people are going to be. So now you're going to have to essentially figure out where to redirect this. So where are you redirecting it to? Like, what would your tactic be, Laura, to redirect it to something that is pertinent, that is relatable, that kind of gets you there? Do you link them to the category that's based on that post? Like, what's your tactic there?
I think I would redirect to something that is fresh content that addresses that topic or that solution, but is now accurate and is now the right code or the right solution or the right alternative, because maybe we wrote about something that's just no longer relevant, something that's archaic now, but now there's something else that we're using instead or that we're doing instead. So why not redirect to that? So I'd rather give them the right solution that's in fresh content.
I hate it when people redirect to the homepage.
Or
you go, what happened here? Where'd that post go?
Just try to get them in the ballpark, right? Because like Jason said, you want to keep people on your website as long as possible, and a 404 or a wrong link, they're gone. So like, that's an important conversation to be having.
Yeah.
Or I could be a real jerk and redirect to our contact form. Book an appointment now.
This content did exist. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you that if it's either rewrite that content, put a link on it, or send it out and say, you know what, redirection, we're good to go. Go redirect your content and we'll figure out what to do next. And I think the redirection thing is probably your best bet. Because then you're not going to have somebody who skipped over that whole box on the top that says, like, just to let you know, and I've seen this where there's even plugins that exist that do it. It goes, is this content more than 45 days old or more than 2 years old? And then it says, oh, this content's 2 years old in a big old like red banner. And you're like, I don't know if that's the right way to go about it.
Hey, Jason, I don't know if you know this, but Laura has this nifty little light that she uses in order to take pictures. So
the LumaCube?
Yeah, I have it on right
now. So I'm trying to use my phone, and I'm like I'm blinding myself over here. So like those of you playing the home game and just watching like the little thing in the bottom corner, like I'm really dark right now. So like Laura has inspired us, like not only to like write better blog posts and stuff, but like we had a whole
better selfies.
Right? You need one of those beauty circle.
That's what I have on right now. That's called the.
Oh, that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We even at our camp, we did 5-minute like lightning talks, and like so Shada showed us how she does content on Instagram and how she gets followers, and like there was people that did things on selfies. So I mean, like we are communicating all the time and trying to make sure like, hey, on this next blog post, let's do that thing with GIF that everyone's doing. Like let's put like a funny little like whatever. Like
right.
I do like that about our blog. Like we do try to include funny, cute little. We have an Easter egg, by the way. We have an Easter egg on our website, and I don't think we have like a prize or anything. But like,
are you allowed to talk about this?
So we actually had an internal thing that said like, "Hey, we're building a new version of WebDev. What would you guys like to see as an Easter egg?" And we had a contest. We had like a drawing, and like like Brad and Lisa chose everything. There's a hidden Easter egg. It's pretty rad. But like that's even just that takes planning as well, right? Like we kind of plan.
Great, I found it. Jeez.
There. I think there's actually like 3 or 4, but like the one that I'm specifically talking about is
loud.
Oh no, that's not the one.
Oh.
You found the video, and it's Thursday, so it's playing a different video. But anyway.
Awesome.
The point being is like we not only our schedule, but like how we build our own internal stuff. We have spreadsheets and base camps and stuff like this too. So I mean, bringing that all together, like we are writing this process down. Like we're building this disaster plan, if you will, and like we do follow it to a T, right? And like I do think that that's made us more flexible as a company to be advantageous with our blog and have somebody like Laura,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we usually do a thing at the end of the show, and I totally forgot to tell you about this, Laura.
Let's do it.
I don't even know if I told Russ, but Russ has watched the show a few times, and so what we usually do at the end of the show is we find like a tool or tip of the week, something that you like. You've shared a bunch of them. You could probably even go back to one of the ones you just previously did and be like, oh yeah, here's the thing I like. But some type of tool or tip of the week that you found this week or you found a couple days ago. It could be a book, it could be a blog post, it could be a recipe, it could be whatever you want. But something that's cool that you that you want to share. Do you guys by chance have anything like that?
Well, I like to rely on Grammarly, which is an extension that you can use. But here's the thing with Grammarly, though.
I thought you were going to go with Canva. I didn't see Grammarly coming.
Well, because I'm more about the grammar, right?
Yes.
And I wish more people would use Grammarly. However, it does conflict with WordPress. So you have to keep an eye on it. So it will tell you, you spelled this word wrong, and you can select it. I agree with you, and I select it. And then all of a sudden, there's a space. Grammarly's like, oh, you accept the word? Awesome. Here's an extra space before the period that you don't need. So
or you highlight the whole word, and then like because you wanted to add like a capital E, and then it adds like 3 E's or 2 E's, and then like you have to backspace, and now half the paragraph is gone, and like that is an issue.
Yeah, so it does conflict with WordPress. Keep an eye on it. However, it will make you a better writer.
Nice. I have the same problem that Russ has, which is I write like I tell Bridget this all the time. I write for fourth graders, and she goes, "That's great. So you should be writing for fifth graders because that's where everybody wants to be, is right around the fifth grade." And so I've actually had that exact same problem, and it's not just on WordPress, but it's also on Facebook as well. Well, if you'll go and write something and it will take like an entire word and duplicate it and then put a couple spaces after it, it'll do some funky stuff.
Yeah.
So the one I'm playing around with is called Ginger, and it's from Ginger Software, and it's a Chrome extension. You just install and use that. I've been playing around with that one. Feel free to go take a look at that one. They're having a sale at 60% off, apparently. I thought it was free, but okay. I guess there's a paid version of it too. But gingersoftware.com. Go take a look at that one.
Can I be the nerd of the group and recommend an actual like developer tool?
Yes, please do. What's your favorite text editor or terminal program, or what do you got?
I'm only allowed to say Vim, or else people mentioned on this thing, primarily Ben Loba will not allow me to work anymore if I don't say Vim. But so we at WebDev, we're trying to do this thing called Composer. And so Composer is a file that lives wherever you want it to live. And so what we're trying to do is, instead of having to include libraries and making sure that everybody's on the same version, we're using this thing called Composer, and it goes into every project, and you can just say Composer install, and it will pull what I think the necessary files are, and then Jason can, he can edit the Composer file, and then we all do a pull. And that way what we're trying to do at the company is we're all trying to make sure we're using the same thing, because Git sometimes is the problem, or we're not pulling right, or so like Composer, that's the thing that we've learned this month, really, is just like, how do we get everybody on the same page? Like, we're trying to ramp that up right now.
And that's one of those things that probably a good number of your people are already using, but no one's actually said like, hey, by the way, use Composer so we're all on the same page here. We're all using the same tool set, and we're not having to like figure out what to include and what not to include and what version we're using and any of that. So it's funny now that they're all like, hey, by the way, we use this thing, and everybody's like, we already use that thing. And then the few people who have never used it are actually get to learn how to use it. So that's awesome. I like it. Composer it is. Awesome. Well, that's about it, folks. I want to say thank you very much for hanging out with us today and being on the show. I really appreciate it, Laura. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you for Cheryl and Sherry for helping us out with our show notes. They wrote quite a bit of content here. So if you don't want to listen to us and you just want to, which is kind of funny to say right now, but go take a look at it. They wrote 1,223 words about this content right now.
That is awesome. I wonder what you should have them on next week and talk about their content schedule.
Oh my gosh. They're like, well, on Thursday, we're on Blab.
Right.
And we write 1,300 words about it.
Wow.
Yep. So make sure you go and check them out. They're on Twitter. Their information will be in the show notes. So feel free to go hang out with them and talk with them on Twitter about all that fun stuff. I want to say thank you very much, Laura, for being on the show. I want to say thank you for WebDev Studios for, talking about this stuff. I've seen you guys link to us. I've seen all sorts of fun stuff, and it's awesome. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
This is part of a thing that we do at WebDev called 5 for the Future. Tomorrow, everybody's just going to give back to the company. Like, we're all going to write different cool tools and exciting things. This is part of that. So Jason, not as an ambassador of WDS, but thank you for letting us come on the show and contribute back, of course, maybe our skill helps somebody out there having, that issue with WordPress. And that's all we want to do.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys totally. So go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com. You can click on the links there to subscribe. If you want to subscribe to this content, WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. And lastly, if you want to sponsor this show or any other shows on WPwatercooler.org, it's WPwatercooler.com/sponsor. Talk to y'all later. See you next week. See you tomorrow if you watch us tomorrow. Talk to you later.
Bright and early, 11 a.m. p.m. Pacific.
11
a.m. Pacific time.
Bye, all.
Hi, I'm Say Reed. I talk about all the things.